Here is the voice of the working class, Rick Smith.
And welcome, brothers, sisters, working class heroes. This is the Rick Smith Show. Thanks so much for being here today on the big program. Lots to get to, lots to talk about. New Gallup poll out. Good news for working people. New Gallup poll says 71% of Americans approve of labor unions. That is the highest approval rating since 1965. You know, back when 1965, I seem to remember unionization in this country was 35% of the private sector workforce was in a union at that point. Wouldn't it be great? Wouldn't it be great if 35% of the workforce today in the private sector were members of labor unions, enjoying better wages, hours, working conditions, health care, retirement security? Wow, wouldn't that be a way to move the country in a better direction? Yeah, it would. Now, like I said, highest since 1965. Up again, 71% up from before the pandemic, which was 64%. Pretty sizable jump. And again, coming out of the pandemic, back when we were told frontline heroes, essential, and then only to get relegated to the back of the bus. I think people are tired of it, and I think people are going, hey, how do we change the world? And today we're going to talk a little bit about how do you begin to do that? Smart policy being part of it. Also today, lots of focus on the new economy, moving the country forward, the clean, green energy sector, lots of manufacturing jobs being announced, and the announcements coming fast and furious. The Wall Street Journal is saying that what we're seeing is globalization in reverse. Yep. They said, look, after the COVID-19 pandemic, basically upended our entire supply chain, which, predictable things that I've been talking about for years. They say that U.S. companies are bringing jobs back to the U.S. and beginning to process closer to home. And you go, yeah, you should have saw that. This is why you pay the smart people the big money to know this stuff. Although the greed got to them, man. That next quarter, the bigger checks, and then the pandemic hit, and the reality that it's not all fun and games. Now, again, we're going to see lots of investment moving forward. I saw First Solar. They're going to be investing $1.2 billion in U.S. plants because, hey, solar power, yeah, duh. But we've also got a policy in place that's going to move us in that direction. Corporate America, capitalism, going to feed that demand. Smart. It's been my view that had we done this back in the, 80s, when the guy who destroyed the country and moved us in all the wrong directions, Ronald Reagan, ripped the solar panels off the White House. Had we continued down the path that Carter put us on, we'd be so much better off. The globe would be so much better off. I think of the wars. Never mind. That's an exercise in futility, and it's one of those things that I don't even really want to get into. Also, the idea that we're going to start building cars in the U.S. again. And lots of them, the electric kind and the batteries. And this is one of those things where you go, because there have been tons of announcements. GM, Hyundai, Tesla's talking about building a couple of battery plants. There's a bunch of this really good news out there. Honda just announced a partnership with LG where they're considering how they build a 40 gigawatt hours of battery a year, which would, I guess, fuel something like 700,000 vehicles. That'd be good, I think, right? And you go, well, how'd that happen? Well, in order to get the tax breaks that are in the Biden legislation, in order to get the tax breaks that Democrats have pushed through, no thank you, Republicans, because you didn't come along. You got to build stuff here. Yeah, smart policy. And this is where I keep coming to this moment where smart policy. In fact, coming very soon, they're going to be opening the Intel. They're going to be breaking ground on the Intel plant in Ohio. In fact, Corning just announced that they're going to be spending a boatload of money in Phoenix to ramp up production of fiber optic cable. Massive internet program. This is where you go, who's responsible? Maybe, hold on. Maybe we could come up with a stupid sticker. Maybe we could repurpose those idiotic stickers that morons aren't putting on gas pumps anymore. The ones that Joe Biden did this. Maybe we could grab those stickers and put them in places that matter. Because all of this stuff that's happening is because of smart policy. Policy put forth by the Biden administration and Democrats with no help really from Republicans have put into law. And again, why is this happening? Why are these jobs coming back? Why the Buy American provision? Something that I've been talking about, all 17 years I've been doing this show. Things need to be made here. In fact, in the article written by the good folks there at the Axios, thanks to the infrastructure funding, the law's Buy American provisions, it will need to be made largely in the U.S. They're reporting right there. In order to get the tax credits, in order to get the incentive, in order to get the carrot, you got to do something for it. And what is that? Oh, yeah. You got to make it in the U.S. and you got to have U.S. jobs. And I love the fact that they want those to be union jobs. Since unions are very popular right now, seems like a great idea. And again, it comes back down to this idea. It's the policy, stupid. It really is. It's the policy. And I'm curious your thoughts. 1-866-416-RICK. 1-866-416-7425. In this moment, as we're seeing all of this energy, all of this excitement, all of this move towards reshoring manufacturing, moving in a direction to make this country a producer again. Because remember, for 100 years, this was the global producer. We're where things were made. I always point to that bridge in Trenton, New Jersey, that says Trenton makes, the world takes. That was true for 100 years. We have given that away, and it's, look, I don't mind fighting and losing. I've been in a lot of fights that I've lost. I mind losing and not putting up, and this is what's happened to us. We've given away our manufacturing base because corporate America goes, hey, we can make more profit for us. Screw those workers. Let them go get other jobs. We can make higher profits by exploiting workers in other countries, exploiting lax labor laws and non-existent environmental laws, and we can do all this stuff and pocket the difference without thinking that there are other problems. And we had legislators, we had rule makers, we had lawmakers who, make a campaign contribution, buy our democracy, that allowed it to happen. And am I not surprised that there are angry people in this country? No, I'm not surprised. I'm angry at what's happened. Am I surprised that it's angry old white guys who are sharing Q nonsense and talking about joining the militia? No. They got screwed. They thought they had the world by the short hairs, and corporate America screwed them. Now, what corporate America smartly did, and in their defense, they're smart. They created a media network to go, no, it wasn't us. No, we would never do that. We love you. It was those people. They're the people who destroyed your country. Go get them. It was Democrats, it was immigrants, it was others, and they fed them the red meat daily on a constant basis. Constant outrage candy. While continuing to push policy that made their lives worse. And yet the amazing part of it is, and I go back to the Tea Party movement, and I remember arguing with Tea Party people back then, we're taxed enough already. And I remember going, yeah, working people are. But let's talk about apples and apples and oranges and not get into this hyperbolic nonsense. Who are we talking about taxing? Reagan takes office, top marginal tax rate 70%. He leaves office, it's 28%. Who picked up the difference? You did, dummy. By, well, either paying higher taxes or getting less and taking on more debt. And where are we now? We're, what, $30 trillion in debt? We're getting less services. We're getting less opportunities. And, oh, by the way, we've got the best democracy corporate America can buy. And now we've got a president. Now we've got an administration that's going, you know what, we need to change this. We need smarter policy that's going to help the little guy. We need smarter policy that's going to help the working class. And that's what we're seeing. That's what we're seeing through the infrastructure bill. That's what we're seeing in moving us towards reinvesting through a Buy American provision in all of this stuff. Ensuring that what we, through our government procurement, our tax dollars spends, has a reverberation effect us. This every working person should be thrilled with. But what are we hearing from our Republican friends? Obstruction. You know, heck, they're already planning to impeach him. They aren't even in power yet. They're already planning an impeachment. And understand, his approval ratings are going up because why? Life's getting better. You know, when that moron McCarthy said, well, is your life better, 2 years ago? And people are starting to go, yeah, my life's better, much better now than it was 2 years ago. Remember, we were locked down. Gas prices are coming down. Inflation's coming down a little bit. Jobs are plentiful. The economy seems to be moving in the right direction. And oh, by the way, we're beginning to talk about how we move this country's economy in a different place. And this is what I've been saying for the longest time. It's about the policy. It's the policy, stupid. When you allow corporate America to write the policies through their American Legislative Exchange Councils that secretively hand off, here's what we want, and they get lobbyists in there to spend, millions of dollars, whining and dining our legislators. It's not amazing. It's not surprising they get what they want, and we don't. And now we've got an administration that just a little bit is helping working people. And the right and the Wall Street folks and the elite and the well-connected, they don't happy. Not happy at all. Which is why you're seeing the spasms, which is why you're seeing all of the divisive stuff coming out of the think tanks so that the dim can share it without even thought. It's amazing to me. I'm going to take a quick break here. When we come back, a couple of emails that grabbed my attention. I got a bunch of them yesterday. I'm not going to get to all of them, but just some that just grabbed my attention. Want to hear your thoughts. 1-866-416-RICK. 1-866-416-7425. Going to take a quick break. Right back after this. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show. If you're a fan of the show, you've heard our labor history in 2 segments, and you can hear them on the radio pretty much anywhere in the U.S. Labor history has never been more important than it is right now. So here's what we'd like you to do. Tell a teacher. Tell a teacher that labor history is important and that they can get digestible 2-minute lessons that are absolutely free. Free to download, free to use, free to share. Tell a teacher to go to thericksmithshow.com/history and help us put labor back where it belongs, in the classroom. Generations of American workers fought, bled, and died to build the American way of life. It's our job to keep their stories alive. Go tell a teacher that we're here to help them do just that. Find us at thericksmithshow.com/history today.
Welcome back to The Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
1-866-416-RICK, 1-866-416-7425. Again, like I said, I got a couple of emails from folks who not thrilled with my position on Biden's student loan debt forgiveness plan. In fact, Dennis says, I simply don't understand how you can support Biden's handouts while working people are left holding the bag. Workers paying for their boss's education is a bad thing. I would have had expected better from you. Marianne writes, more handouts for the wealthy while working poor struggle. I thought you knew better. And that was kind of the gist of some with much more colorful language, which I didn't want to highlight. Here's the reality. No policy is ever perfect. This is a win for working people because understand the people who are going to get their loans basically forgiven are truck drivers and tradesmen and people who went to VOTEC programs and license programs, people who cut hair and all of those things. They're going to get their stuff forgiven. Their life is going to change. Those are working people. Those are the folks who I firmly believe those programs should have been paid for from the beginning. And we should, because in the past, what used to happen is, and this is what happened with me. I worked for a company that said, we'll train you. You want to drive a truck? We'll train you. You didn't have to go to a school and pay thousands of dollars. You worked for a company. They trained you. That's almost over these days. There are a couple of places that still do it, but you've got these truck driving schools all over that, you pay thousands of dollars and you can take out a loan and pay it back slowly. This is going to give people an opportunity to get out from under that. You want to go, learn how to do hair or nails or whatever needs a license at this moment. For working people, you want to be a carpenter, you want to be an electrician, all that stuff. While I'm a huge believer in union apprenticeship programs, not everybody gets into them. They're not in every place. These are going to help working people. So for me, the first part of it is that. It's that part of it. We're gonna help forgive those people who said, you know what, I want to make my life. I'm gonna make my life better. We're gonna get skills, things that I believe should have been covered all along. And then the college students, when you look at the obscene amount of tuition inflation that's gone on, not because as we're sold, they're irresponsible, it's those teachers' salaries, which is nonsense. It's because states walked away from education. Here in Pennsylvania, where I'm at, and this plays out across the country, back in the 80s, the Commonwealth picked up about 2/3 of the cost of an education. The students picked up about 1/3. Today, it's completely on its head. It's the student picks up 3/4 of the cost. The state picks up about 1/4. So to me, this is about a tiny bit of justice, a tiny bit of fairness. Now, do we need to do more? Yeah, we need to fix the system. And we do that through policy. We do it through tax policy. And again, as I said in the last segment, it's about the policy. It's about getting us to a place where we're changing how things are done and returning to a time when working people had power across the economy, when working people were the focus of the economy. When my grandparents' generation decided that, hey, we're going to invest in healthcare, we're going to invest in education, we're going to have community hospitals, we're going to have state-run schools and community schools, and we're going to invest in that. We're going to have public education. We're going to invest in that. We're going to invest in the commons, things that we all hold near and dear, and not privatize and profitize and hand off for special interests. No, the commons, things that we all hold together. And we need to change the way this economy's focused. For too long in my lifetime, the economy's been focused on, hey, how's Wall Street doing? Are the Wall Street traders happy? How's the stock doing? How's the boss doing? Dennis brings up, paying for the boss. We've been paying for the boss for decades now. We've been more worried about the boss than we've been worried about the workers. And now, finally, for a brief moment, we've got an administration that's going, hey, maybe the ham and eggers need a hand. Maybe those working folks, maybe they need a break too. maybe working families need a handout. Maybe they need a bailout. Maybe Main Street needs some help. So when you look at some of the policies on manufacturing that are reshoring those jobs and bringing those jobs back with smart policy, that's a good thing. For decades now, we've been told by economists, we need to break down barriers, deregulate, crack down on getting rid of minimum wage and maximum hour laws and all of that stuff. Be more business friendly. Pursue the no rights at work agenda. Limit the ability to sue people when they do bad things. Limit the liability for corporations when workers get injured. Protect corporate interests. And what did Jim Justice just say not too long ago, the governor of West Virginia? Because they did that. They got rid of prevailing wage laws. They got rid of, they passed a right to work law, and Jim Justice said it didn't work. Jobs didn't come flowing in, just made conditions worse. And that was the point of it. It was to make conditions worse for working people and, more profitable for the folks at the top. Because it's about squeezing that quarter till the eagle screams, or that worker until they scream. But am I surprised that this issue is got people, especially working people who didn't get to go to college, upset? No, I'm not surprised at it. Because they play on that jealousy. They play on that anger. They play on ripping us apart. I look at it as, look, I got screwed too. I didn't get to go to college when I wanted to. But I'm looking at it from my kids. How do we fix this system? How do we take this, build on it, and move forward? And for your kids in the future, this is repairing a system that has taken decades to break. How do we move in a direction that undoes the damage that they have caused? That quote unquote the smart people, our economists who said, "Oh no, we'll take care of the poor." But working people, no, you got to pull yourself up by the bootstraps. We'll take care of the really poor, the deserving poor, the ones who are really, we'll help them, begrudgingly, of course. But you in the middle class, you working, you keep treading along. No help for you. But every time a bank gets in trouble, every time corporate America gets in trouble, every time a billionaire needs help, we're there with the checkbook, man. And what does that mean? It means less for your children. It means less opportunity for you, your kids, your family, for your communities. We need to be talking about how we encourage better trade policies that encourages job growth at home. We need good quality jobs. We need to be talking about job creation and what kind of jobs. Not just, hey, we created jobs. No, what kind? We need full employment that has prevailing wage laws in place that ensures that those are good wage jobs. We need strong unions and strong collective bargaining rights. Stop with this deregulation mantra and this craziness that's just been a race to the bottom and made all of us worse off while enriching a handful at the top. That's what we need to be doing. And thank goodness for Joe Biden and this administration for doing some of that. Is it enough? No, not yet. But they're trying, which is why the right's losing their mind. Love to hear your thoughts. Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Quick break. Right back. I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1907. That was the day labor leader Luisa Moreno was born in Guatemala City. As a young woman, she fought for the admission of women into Guatemalan universities. After attending journalism school in Mexico City, Luisa moved to New York with her husband and worked as a seamstress. Outraged by low pay, racial discrimination, and poor working conditions, she led organizing efforts on the job. During the Great Depression, she worked as a full-time union organizer, first with the AFL, organizing black and Latina cigar rollers in Florida. But she also became active with the Communist Party and joined CIO efforts to organize cannery workers. Luisa led unionizing efforts of pecan shelling women workers in San Antonio, Texas, and then of cannery workers in Los Angeles. In 1938, Luisa helped organize the Spanish-speaking People's Congress. During World War II, she fought against discrimination efficient in hiring of Mexicans in oil and war-related industries. In the 1940s, she became centrally involved in high-profile legal defense cases of Mexican-American youth prosecuted on frame-up charges. These included work around the 1942 Sleepy Lagoon case and then of victims of the Zoot Suit riots a year later. She continued union work in California, helping to organize and represent walnut pickers. By 1950, she was caught in the crosshairs of the McCarthy-era witch hunts. Louisa was targeted by Operation Wetback and offered citizenship status in return for testimony against radical labor leader Harry Bridges. When she refused, she faced deportation on the accusation that she had once been a member of the Communist Party. She returned to Guatemala and continued organizing workers throughout Central America. Luisa Moreno died in Guatemala in 1992. Like what you hear? Check out more at laborhistoryin2.com.
Corporate acolytes and right-wing moralists constantly preach to laboring stiffs about the uplifting dignity of work. Of course, that's dignity as defined and controlled by corporate elites, not by workers, and the reward for it frequently includes on-the-job injuries and death. Not that CEOs and well-heeled investors intend to sicken, maim, and kill thousands of laborers every year, but they certainly do put them in positions that assure such unhappy results. For example, they demand that farm workers go sunrise to sunset picking crops in California's 105-degree desert heat, and that construction crews toil in the muggy dog days of Florida summers, tarring condo roofs. Low-paid, powerless workers die, but no one in the corporate hierarchy did the deed, right? Heat was the killer. But wait, not only are aloof, air-cool bosses the ones who knowingly subject subordinates to deadly heat, but they're also the ones who hire squads of lobbyists and lawyers to kill simple, inexpensive rules to stop these deaths. Such rules as requiring ample water at work sites, ensuring paid rest breaks in cool spaces, training on-site managers and employees to detect and react to signs of heat stress, and imposing serious punishments for violators. Such sensible steps have repeatedly been proposed as official workplace policy for at least the last 50 years. But intense industry lobbying has killed the adoption of all attempts to prevent what amounts to workplace murder by corporate profiteers. Instead, the U.S. government pretends to protect workers by printing posters admonishing employees to beware of heat, basically telling them goodbye and good luck. This is Jim Hightower saying, but at last a real proposal has been put on the table by more than 110 grassroots groups. See it and join it by contacting Public Citizen, citizen.org.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So again, a number of folks not pleased with the student loan forgiveness plan. And I know there's a lot of people, a lot of energy put in it. And as I've said a number of times, I wish folks would take that energy and use it on other things. Like, we've been giving the wealthy bailouts for decades. How about that? How about how badly broken our tax code is, where you got 55 corporations who paid zero taxes? How about some of the, where's the anger there? It's always amazing to me when we look at our neighbors and somehow we're going to begrudge them of a little bit of help. It's remarkable. And the other part of it is there are so many things that we should be fighting for. And one of them, something very few people even talk about, trade adjustment assistance, which evidently may be on the chopping block, and the rationale for it kind of weird. Especially the justification from our friends on the right. And here to share some thoughts on that, I've asked our good friend Scott Paul to give us some thoughts. He's the president of the Alliance for American Manufacturing. AmericanManufacturing.org is their website. Scott, thanks for taking time for us.
Hey, Rick, it is great to be with you as always.
So we spend a lot of time on the student loan thing, and I think it's a good step. I think it's a smart move. I think it's going to be helpful to a lot of working people. It's been shoveled at us as divisive, but there's a lot of things that we could be fighting for in addition to this that I think are just as important, and trade adjustment assistance being one of those things.
Yeah, it is. And I mean, the odds are, if you're listening to this, you have no idea what we're talking about, trade adjustment assistance. You only know about it if you need it. And you need it if you work in a factory or a related facility and that factory closes down or has layoffs because it's shifting the production overseas, or it's closing down because imports are coming in to the United States that are replacing the product that you once made. And it's a program that's been in the law since the early 1960s. And it provides some benefits for workers to get back up on their feet. And Rick, I'm sure you know workers who have had trade adjustment assistance benefits as well. And it's not a perfect program, but it provides some retraining funds, some other kinds of income support, even some healthcare support in some cases. But here's the rub. A lot of these Republicans who criticized the student loan relief that the president announced said they did so because it's not going to help anybody who doesn't have a four-year college degree, right? So here are these people, and most of the recipients for trade adjustment assistance do not have a four-year college degree. They're working people who went into the factories right out of high school or with a tiny little bit of training, and Republicans want to eviscerate this program. In many cases, they think the benefits are too generous, or they don't think it should be applied as broadly as it is. And they always want to hold it hostage to get something that they want, like more free trade agreements. So we've got to call their bluff on this because, unfortunately, while we are seeing a lot of new factory announcements in the U.S., we're still seeing factories shut down. I mean, John Deere announced just within the last month that it was shifting some tractor production to Mexico. So this is still happening, and workers need this assistance to get back up on their feet.
How does an American icon like John Deere leave this country? How do we not hold them just absolutely accountable? How is that not an absolute PR nightmare for them?
Yeah, well, I agree, and they're doing really well. I mean, they are enormously profitable. In fact, they sold out of tractors for the second quarter of this year. They're like oversubscribed, but it's about greed. And again, you'll have people who will give John Deere a break on this, or if you bail out the big banks, they'll give them a break. But young people and others who are struggling because of the high cost of higher education, forget about it. We don't want to help, a lot of people who could really use the help. Let's help out the financial institutions that in good times make billions and billions of dollars, and then come to the government if they hit one downturn.
Yeah.
That's not to me. There's nothing conservative about that, and there's certainly nothing compassionate about that approach as well.
No, back to this trade adjustment assistance. The argument that they make is, well, we're bringing jobs back. We don't need this. I think you absolutely do need it because, as you pointed out, there's still places that are still leaving. And what's interesting to me is in every free trade agreement we have, they include this because they know we're going to lose jobs, even though they tell us we're doing these trade agreements so that we can create more jobs and we can bring jobs to the country, and that's how they've always sold them. And yet this trade adjustment assistance, which is very meager. Look, this isn't living the life of luxury. It's nowhere near the wage and the compensation that they lost. In fact, it's small percentages of what the loss is. It's interesting to me that this doesn't get the kind of anger and outrage and attention that a meager amount of money to students would get.
Yeah, you're right, Rick. This is just a safety net program. This isn't designed to be perpetual income support. This is like a bridge to get back into the job market, but to also find a way that you aren't going to have to go deep into debt to pay your bills. When you have that transition. And Republicans in particular who oppose this are just so hypocritical about it because they will say they want to, what's Washington is screwing blue collar people because none of the stuff that Washington is doing applies to them. And then they're the ones who actually want to hold back some sort of a safety net for blue collar workers who lose their jobs because in some cases of the very trade agreements that these Republicans have supported over the years. So it's the bottom line is we have between now and October 1st to reauthorize this program. in a way that it won't revert back to an even smaller set of benefits and apply to an even smaller class of working Americans. For instance, if it gets rolled back, it won't include workers who've lost their jobs to trade with China, simply because we don't have a technical free trade agreement with China, where you and I know we still face a lot of competition from China. And there's a lot of jobs that have been displaced in the United States because of that lopsided trade relationship that we have.
No, I mean, it's crazy. And what you're talking about here is a little bit of extended unemployment while people get additional training or pursue other opportunities to get the training that they need. This isn't, as I said, even anything close to what they're losing, but it's a helping hand to move them in a direction to get, some different skills. And it's amazing to me that anyone would stand in the way of this for any reason whatsoever. But again, you don't have to come along with this. It's just to get another one of those moments for our listeners to remember. This is why I always say Republicans hate working people. It just seems to be another thing, that a glowing bulb that jumps out. You're listening to the Rick Smith Show here with Scott Paul. Scott is the president of the Alliance for American Manufacturing, AmericanManufacturing.org, the website. You can check out the work that they do there. Now, the good news. Headlines, tons of them. The clean energy manufacturing announcements coming fast and furious. Solar panels, batteries, electric vehicles, chips, fiber optic cables, all kinds of stuff being, plants being broken ground. We may start making stuff again in this country.
Well, we may. That's right. And so this is exciting. And I think it's exciting for two reasons. Number one, if you and I would have talked a year ago and I would have said, Rick, one of the biggest things that's going to happen in 2022 is that we're going to see so many announcements of new factories in the United States that are going to employ thousands of people that you won't even be able to keep track of them all. I think most people would have been like, how is that even possible? We're losing these jobs, or there's, robots or automation, and factories are a thing of the past. It's all about the digital economy now. But this is proof that both we've learned some of the lessons from the pandemic about having more production here in the United States. We haven't fully learned this lesson, but we've started to learn this lesson. And B, policy makes a difference. If you actually have public investment in our infrastructure, in clean energy, if you actually have procurement policies that say in order to get that public investment, you have to manufacture it in the United States. If you have tax incentives that encourage consumers to buy these products that are made in the United States. And finally, if you have some trade enforcement and you mix all that together in a stew, you're going to get a bunch of these factories pop up all over America. And that's exactly what we've seen. And we've seen a lot of these announcements just over the last week across a broad range of products, from broadband, fiber optic cable, to solar panels, to electric vehicle batteries, and the list goes, and semiconductors as well. And so that list keeps growing and growing.
What we need is someone with a big giant sign to go to all these places, and with the, like those idiotic stickers they were putting all over gas pumps. Joe Biden did this. We need someone with a giant sign to put those out front of all of the groundbreakings that are happening. Because look, this is because of those policies. Yeah. Comes back down to the policies. It's the policy, stupid. It's that simple.
Yeah, 100%. And obviously, we're preaching to the choir here and talking to each other because you and I have both understood for a long time that if you do have an industrial policy in the United States and you're committed to it, and you have real investment behind it, that it can be highly effective. And how do we know that? Because A, it's worked in the past in the United States, and B, every other country does this. So to a different degree. And so we have the uniquely American version of this, of course, but it's how we get that EV production in the United States, or how we get that solar panel production in the United States, when these industries are starting virtually from scratch. And I'm really, really thrilled that this administration not only understands it, but is deeply committed to it and wants to position the United States as a global leader in production as we move ahead.
Yeah,
so
no.
not only are we doing apps and social networks and stuff like that, we're actually making stuff, and I think that's great news for our security and for jobs.
No, absolutely. And but here's where my fear is, and I think we've had this conversation before. My fear is we're seeing this and we're moving in the direction, and my fear is like 1980, Republicans come into office and pull the rug out from under us, like 2000, 12 and 16, come in, pull the rug out from under us, where the investments that we're making, good investments, then get squashed because you have this kind of this corporate money backlash. I think people want this. People want a green economy. People want to move in a new direction. Everybody I talk to is thrilled about the potential of a better future and the jobs and union jobs that come along with this. My fear is seeing this movie.
Yeah. Yeah, and that is a legitimate fear, and I take time back to 2009, the Recovery Act, how it was one shot and done, right? It was a very limited duration, and then you had Republicans sniping at it the whole time. The thing that I'm hopeful sets these latest actions apart, particularly the infrastructure and the chips, is that both of those bills passed with bipartisan support. I mean, it wasn't overwhelming Republican support, that's to be sure, but there were enough Republicans that made it bipartisan. And I think much like other popular Democratic policies, like Medicare or the Affordable Care Act or what have you, they may snipe at it a little bit, but they really don't want to get rid of that stuff because they realize there are extraordinary benefits for their communities there. And then on clean energy, I think the difference now compared to like 12 or 13 years ago is a lot of these clean energy investments are going into red states or purple states, Texas or, Arizona or Georgia, what have you, Tennessee, Kentucky. And so in addition to kind of like the industrial heartland, the upper industrial heartland in Ohio and what have you. And so I think that, it's going to be hard for Republicans in those states to turn their back on some of these policies when they're going to have plants that are going to be opening and that are going to depend on the continuation of these policies to stay in business. So my hope is that we've squeezed some of that out. But you're right. We have to make sure this is sustained. We have to guard against attacks on it. And the last thing we need to do, and this is the unfinished task that Biden has, is that we have to make sure that our trade tools are sharp and that we're willing to use them. Because so far we've basically had the carryover Trump trade policies in place. There's a lot of sniping at those trade policies by some people. But, Biden, will want to do his own version of this, and it needs to be a good one when it hits the ground. And that's what we're really pressing them on with.
No, I mean, last bit, I'm excited about where we can go from here. The idea that you're bringing manufacturing back, and with that, the entrepreneurial mind, the tinkering, the idea of what could come next. Because when you have manufacturing, you have people who are going to go in their garage and trying to figure out how to make things better. And that our history has been that of tinkerers and inventors and people that that think the next down the road of what could possibly be. I'm excited about the future.
Yeah. You've we could talk for an hour about this, but I'll wrap it up in 30 seconds. Is that our kids today, it was like, let's learn how to code, develop an app. Our kids tomorrow, I hope it's get back to that tinkering to see how you can become more self-sufficient from a green energy perspective, or make that next big thing here in the United States, because there will be far more opportunities to do that today than there were 5 or 10 years ago with these policies in place.
Absolutely. Scott, I appreciate the time as always. Great stuff. Good news. Always great when we have both of those things. Thanks so much.
Totally agree. Rick, thanks so much for having me on.
Anytime. Our good friend Scott Paul, the Alliance for American Manufacturing, AmericanManufacturing.org, their website. Check it out. We'll get links out on social media. Quick break. Right back with your thoughts. 1-866-416-RICK, 1-866-416-7425. Right back. I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1935. That was the day that President Franklin Delano Roosevelt signed the Revenue Tax Act, more popularly known as the Wealth Tax. The act reformed the federal income tax to raise rates on the wealthiest in the nation. Those making over $5 million a year could pay taxes up to 75%. In a speech to Congress that summer, Roosevelt had explained his thoughts on wealth and taxes. The president said, quote, "Wealth in the modern world does not come merely from individual effort. It results from a combination of individual effort and of the manifold uses to which the community puts that effort. The individual does not create the product of his industry with his own hands. He utilizes the many processes and forces of mass production to meet the demands of a national and international market. Therefore, in spite of the great importance in our national life of the efforts and ingenuity of unusual individuals, the people in the mass have inevitably helped to make large fortunes possible. Without mass cooperation, FDR said, great accumulation of wealth would be impossible save by unhealthy speculation." The president went on, as Andrew Carnegie put it, where wealth accumulates honorably, the people are always silent partners. Whether it be wealth achieved through the cooperation of the entire community or riches gained by speculation, in either case, the ownership of such wealth or riches represents a great public interest and a great ability to pay. Although FDR tried to win over the nation's wealthy by quoting industrialist Andrew Carnegie, he did not gain their support. Not surprisingly, many of the nation's wealthy lobbied for and used tax loopholes to evade paying the new tax rates. Like what you hear? Check out more at laborhistoryin2.com.
You're listening to The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk.
1-866-416-RICK, 1-866-416-7425. Let's go to the phones. Got Alice on line one. Alice, how are we doing today?
We're doing. How about yourself?
I'm living the dream. What's on your mind?
Well, what I wanted to say was, hopefully, that more people, once everything starts to go into effect with the, the new jobs and whatnot, that people will decide that, we could tinker with it and improve that. And the thing is, you need people, really, everything goes hand in hand. I know I'm sounding very disjointed, but things go hand in hand when you have to have money and you have to have an education. And those two things go hand in hand, because if you think something scientifically that's wrong, you're not going to get anywhere. And I think the big thing is, once, hopefully, things start to go back to a little bit more towards the sane side, that we'll start to see people, tinkering more, wanting to expand the horizons, educate themselves so they have a chance to go out there and improve things.
That's the hope. When the economy gets better, people's lives get better, maybe they're not as angry anymore. And maybe we move in a better direction. That's kind of the hope where my mind goes. Appreciate the thoughts.
Bye.
Good stuff. But here, this is the thing, and this is why it's amazing to me that Biden's approval ratings aren't higher, because lots of stuff that any administration, especially the last one, would have been thrilled to get done. And, for me, it comes back to something, that my high school government teacher said. We're going back a lot of years. It was, government decides who gets what. Our government decides who gets what. And for too long, our government's been deciding that the well-connected and the wealthy get whatever they want, because they're paying for they're paying for the campaigns. They're where the campaign cash comes from, thanks to our Supreme Court and the shenanigans there. We're in a moment now where I'm hoping that working people are paying attention, especially as November comes. This is a moment. This administration has doubled down on trying to help working families, has doubled down on trying to invest in a different kind of economy, making sure that there are jobs here, making sure that those jobs are decent jobs, making sure that people have health care, making sure that there are opportunities. And we can argue whether you think it's good enough. They're trying. Unlike the previous administration that got nothing done. Lots of blather, lots of pumping up the chest and chest thumping, but no real action. Oh, they did have one action. They made rich people richer. That's their legacy. They own that. This administration is trying to make working people's lives better by creating jobs, by reshoring manufacturing, by investing in this country to leave something better for the next generation. And oh, by the way, creating jobs. And oh, by the way, maybe dealing with the climate problems. So much here, so much being done. And I think we've been trained to not think of our government helping working people. I think we've been trained for far too long to think, well, what? What's wrong? Why would government help us? Why would our government help us? It's for the poor and for the wealthy. Because this is what my high school government teacher said back in the 80s. You know, when asked, which side do you go on? Because a lot of us were trying to decide, well, which political party should we be part of? And he was clear. He said, look, the Democrats are for the very poor and big social programs, and the Republicans are for lesser government and for the very wealthy. It's that simple. The people in the middle, they end up paying for both of them. You have to decide which end you're going to be at, because you're going to pay for both. And it was the more I think back to that, it was kind of a flippant comment. He was kind of just being sarcastic, but it makes worlds of sense. And we now have a bunch of embarrassed millionaires of people who think that they're going to all be Jeff Bezos. And looking behind them at the people who are struggling and with a jaundiced eye. Only now to realize that, life didn't turn out the way that they had planned. And now they're angry because the jobs are gone, the opportunities are fewer for them, and they're ticked. And the wealth class is very happy to use that anger to pit them against everybody else. And this is one of those moments where, by bringing those jobs back, and as Scott Paul said, especially into red states, creating living wage jobs for people, better opportunities for the future, and oh, by the way, dealing with our climate issues. Oh, by the way, moving us in a cleaner, greener direction. Changing this country, and for the better. Getting us off the dirty stuff, and oh, by the way, kind of changing the economy. Because, and I've talked about this before, what good is an economy if so many people are struggling to make ends meet? What good is an economy if working people can't participate? What good is an economy when you're fearful every day of, if you get sick, that you're gonna die poor? What good is an economy if it doesn't take care of people? Love to hear your thoughts. Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. If you missed any program, podcast.
Small green plants lined the bed of what used to be a frontier lake between Switzerland and France. It's existed for 12,000 years, but now it's relegated to just a small stream.
More than half of Europe mired in worst drought in centuries. Climate change action is way more popular than Americans realize. Plus,
a country famed for its oil resources, committed to going to sustainable mobility.
Saudi Arabia pushes to become a global electric vehicle leader.
Really?
Yes.
All of those stories and more straight ahead from BradBlog.com. I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
Stand by for 6 minutes of independent green news, politics, analysis, and snarky comment.
There is no climate crisis. It is a hoax, and fossil fuels are a wonderful thing.
It is 2022, and that is Virginia Congressman Bob Good. Hey, Virginia voters, it's 2022. Can you please vote that guy the hell out of office? This is your Green News Report. Okay, Desi Doyen, from heat and drought in the U.S. to heat and drought in China. Now we're back to heat and drought in Europe.
Yes, unfortunately, more than half of Europe is mired in drought. According to a new report from the European Commission, 64% of the continent is in severe or exceptional drought, the highest category, and it is the worst drought in at least 500 years, and likely more. The combination of record heat and drought has triggered water shortages across Europe and is contributing to a widespread increase in fire danger across the EU. Drought, heat, and fires are all worsened by man-made climate change.
Yep, they are.
Here in the U.S., new projections from NOAA hold a warning for coastal communities that are seeing flooding on sunny days at high tide.
You mean like Florida?
Yes.
Then I'm sure they'll ignore it.
NOAA's latest outlook predicts that sunny day flooding, which today occurs on average nationally about once every 2 months or so at any given spot, could hit as frequently as every other day by 2050. That's within the lifetime of a traditional 30-year mortgage originating today. New Jersey is crafting new regulations to restrict development in coastal flood zones based on future climate projections, not past flood data.
Good.
By 2150, sea levels in Jersey are projected to be 5 to 19 feet higher than today.
Don't tell Florida.
A disturbing new study finds that living near natural gas fracking wells increases the risk of childhood leukemia. Researchers at Yale School of Public Health found that children in Pennsylvania who grew up roughly within a mile of a fracking well are twice as likely as other young people to develop juvenile leukemia. But some good news. New modeling shows that Democrats' newly enacted landmark climate bill, the Inflation Reduction Act, will not only save consumers money and lower energy costs, but will also deliver massive benefits and cost savings for public health. By reducing fossil fuel air pollution, the law will prevent up to 4,500 premature deaths every year by 2030 and hundreds of thousands of asthma attacks, with the biggest gains in communities of color that are disproportionately burdened by industrial pollution.
Well, that is good news.
In other news, a new survey finds that climate action is far more popular than people in the U.S. realize.
Is it?
2/3 of Americans support government climate action, but everyone is underestimating how much other people support climate policies, incorrectly believing that their neighbors don't support action. The researchers found this false perception occurs across all states and demographic groups. Even Democrats don't know that climate policy is very popular.
And why don't Democrats even know that?
The researchers at Boston College partially link it to decades of right-wing media demonizing climate policy.
Go figure.
And it matters, because when people assume something isn't popular, they don't talk about it, leading to what the researchers called, quote, a spiral of silence that helps obscure the deep, widespread support for climate protection measures across the board.
Of course, they don't talk about it. They think others don't agree with them, and they're afraid to speak up about it.
Finally, big moves in electric vehicles. Saudi Arabia has launched a major initiative to become a big player in the global electric vehicle sector, investing billions to develop a domestic minerals mining industry and an EV manufacturing and processing supply chain for batteries and cars. Bloomberg News reports that the petro-state hopes other countries will swap out their dependence on Saudi oil for dependence on Saudi battery materials, a sector that China currently dominates.
Chalk me up as dubious. For much more on all of these stories and the ones we couldn't get to today, check out our website at greennews.bradblog.com. Find, follow, and share us planet-wide on the Facebooks and the Twitters at Green News Report. I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
And this has been your Green News Report. Are you
tired of think tank approved corporate news and commentary? Are you tired of CEOs telling you what to think, who to hate, and who to vote for? Well, welcome to the Rick Smith Show. We don't take orders from some boardroom, and we don't do focus groups or talking points. We don't work for them, and we never will. I'm Rick Smith, and I work for you. Join us daily at thericksmithshow.com and download the podcast and never miss a minute.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So some big news coming out of California today. Their legislature just passed AB 257, the Fast Recovery Act. You may remember last week we talked about this. This is going to give some 550,000 fast food workers the ability to fight for better wages, hours, and conditions by creating a commission, as I understand it, and we'll get to this, to lift wages, to lift conditions, to do something called sectorial bargaining, something we don't do in this country very often that most people don't know about. This could be something that's could sweep across the country. So this is a huge thing if Governor Newsome signs it. That's going to be the question. But here to share some thoughts on the big victory in the legislature today, I've asked Crystal Orozco to come talk with us. She's a fast food worker and one of the leaders with the Fight for 15 and a union campaign out there in California. Crystal, thanks for taking time for us.
Thank you for having me.
So this is kind of a big deal, isn't it?
Yes, it is. We are very excited. We're very happy and grateful for the people who helped pass the bill.
So now what would this do if the governor, let's start with this. What are the chances the governor doesn't sign it?
I don't know exactly, but if he truly does care for the working class, hopefully he will sign this bill.
Yeah, that's the response. So what would this do once the governor signs it? What's the machinery, what's the mechanism that would go into help lifting the lives and the working conditions of some 550,000 workers like yourself in the state of California?
Well, give us a committee, depending on the regions, like locally, and then we'll be able to sit we'll have a seat at the table with the government and the franchisees, and we will be able to, voice our concerns and what we need in our workplace, and not have them worried about the repercussions or the having the fear of getting retaliated against.
You bring up fear and retaliations, and I was just reading a study before the show that was put out by UCLA and UC Berkeley, where they found that 2/3 of fast food workers have experienced wage theft. And they say that half of them have faced health and safety hazards on the job. And in fact, when workers go to their employers and report it, they found that 1/3 of them did nothing. And in fact, they found 1/4 of them were actually retaliated against. So something like this commission that you're talking about sounds like something that is really necessary and needed. Have you ever suffered any consequences from wage theft or unsafe working conditions in your employment?
Yes, unfortunately, we were the ones that got COVID and were taken very little seriously. It took us to go on strike for them to even acknowledge what they were doing was wrong. They expected my coworkers and myself to keep working when they knew very well that we had COVID, and most of them were cooks, and I'm a cashier. We're constantly around people. We're touching the money. The cooks are making their food. It was very unsanitary, and they had no regard to what was going on. They didn't really care. And for the wage theft, yeah, I'm usually a graveyard worker, so I work like 10 to 6, and they don't give us enough people to actually take breaks, and we didn't ever took any 10-minute breaks, 30-minute breaks through the whole shift. We either were expected to take a break in between cars, and but that in the same time they're telling us to clean and get stuff ready for the next day in between cars. So it was kind of contradicting with that. And we didn't know that we were supposed to get paid for the time that we didn't take to get those breaks to make up for us not being able to take them. So yeah, we were cheated out a lot of money, and without the 515, we would have never known. And unfortunately, sadly, a lot of people go into the industry not knowing a lot of these laws because they don't expect them to get affected by this stuff.
Right.
No,
nobody expects to go to work and get cheated. Nobody expects to have their wages, to get cheated out of breaks or overtime or any of that stuff, or be forced to work off the clock, which is another thing that I understand happens quite often, especially in the fast food industry. I'll come in a little bit early and help out your coworkers because, look, as I understand, and you can probably speak to this much better than I can, you want to help out your coworkers because you're all kind of in this together. So you don't want to let somebody down. So if it means staying an extra 15 or 20 minutes to help them out, you'll do that. But you shouldn't have to eat the time and the compensation for it.
I used to go in early just to make sure stuff was ready and ready, and people had stuff where they're supposed to before my shift started. So yeah, that would get you out. That just like that in general,
And especially when you're talking about fast food workers are generally low paid workers. So you're talking about, people who could at least afford it, being the ones cheated the most. So to me, this kind of a law, this kind of a commission, this kind of opportunity to raise up conditions and make sure that kind of stuff doesn't happen, kind of important.
Yeah, it's very important. There's a lot of us who, are most 60% of the workers are Latinos, and and most of us are female, and it's we need to have safe work environments too.
You're listening to the Rick Smith Show. We're here with Crystal Orozco. She's a fast food worker and one of the leaders with the Fight for 15 and a union campaign. If you want to check out their website, fastfoodjusticeaurora.com. We'll get links out on social media how you can take a look at the work that they're doing and take a look at this historic victory, which again I think is fantastic and something that absolutely needs to be moved forward. Now, what would this, as I understand, what would this be pursuing? Would this be solely about wages? Would this be about conditions? Would there be a grievance procedure to solve? What would this look like, and how do you think this will work if it becomes law?
Well, if it becomes law, it will most likely address the stuff that's going on right now currently, and from there, hopefully we will be able to come to agreement and just get stuff started and put back together what's been broken and make it a better work environment at this point, just to catch up on what needs to be done.
What do you say to the people, Crystal, who go, but we're going to raise your wages, we're going to make it more costly for the employers to operate, it's going to make food prices way too expensive and people aren't going to come anymore, and it's going to ruin the whole thing. You've just ruined fast food, Crystal. What do you say to those folks?
Well, unfortunately, they don't realize how often fast food raises their prices anyways. I working as a graveyard shift, we would change the prices on the menu boards. They don't notice because it happens at night, and a lot of people really realize it. And it goes up every time you see a new product out there or them promoting something new. That's when the prices are getting raised, and nothing has changed. Nothing has been fixed. Nothing has been, helping any of us in any way, and it's been going up for so long. So I don't think much would change because, that won't be extra money in their pockets, like the big people who get all the money from it, like profiting off of this, and it'll be spreading it out and helping everybody who's actually putting work to help them.
Right. Honestly, and in looking at some of the profit margins of the big fast food companies, and this is who we're really talking about, these big multinational companies who dominate the fast food industry. they're wildly profitable. They could easily pay a living wage. They could easily make sure that you have some health security and retirement security, safe working conditions. They could easily make sure that you have a schedule a week or two in advance, maybe even 3. Who knows? Wow, that would be a lot to ask. But they could, if they really had to. If the playing field were equal for everyone, they could most certainly adhere to all those things.
Even a livable wage will be, something,
It's a good start. So how are you and your coworkers feeling today? I mean, this has got to be kind of exciting, right?
Yes, we're ecstatic. I wish I was there when they were voting, but just seeing that it passed and receiving a message from some of the senators. Their representatives congratulating me because I got meet a lot of them. Some are very nice, and them coming telling me congratulations before I knew it passed. It was kind of exciting. I was surprised, and everybody was crying, and it was a very emotional day for all of us when they passed.
It feels good to win, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's the first step. It's going to change a lot of people's lives. Just with just getting this far, and hopefully Governor Newsome will see the bigger picture and have a sympathetic eye for the working class who need this.
Yeah. Did you ever think that? I mean, was this your goal to be an organizer? Did you ever see yourself in this position? Is this something you wanted to do? How did you get into this?
No, I didn't see myself talking to people. I'm pretty more of a shy person. I'm not outspoken or
Yeah, it doesn't show.
It doesn't. I'm not used to doing all this, but seeing my coworkers and how they suffered more than I did because of the fact that they were more scared than I was. They gave me the strength to do all this, and I'm kind of proud of myself that I was able to overcome all this stuff just to get the word through for them, and and getting this far made it worth it.
Well, we're proud of you as well. So last thing I gotta go ask you, if you got a message for Governor Newsome, what do you tell the governor?
He needs to pass this bill, and he needs to consider all the working class, because that's most of what we are in California. We are the example for the other states.
And this is how you make people's lives better. Crystal, I appreciate you taking some time. Congratulations on the win. Enjoy it and get up tomorrow and fight to make sure that the workers' lives get better. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you.
Good stuff. Crystal. Again, I look at this and it's amazing. I mean, if you want more information on fastfoodjusticeaurora.com, we'll get links out on social media. How you can take a look at that. Gonna take a quick break. Right back with your thoughts. 1-866-416-RICK. 1-866-416-7425. This is The Rick Smith Show. We're working people. Come to talk. If you're a fan of the show, you've heard our labor history in 2 segments, and you can hear them on the radio pretty much anywhere in the U.S. Labor history has never been more important than it is right now. So here's what we'd like you to do. Tell a teacher. Tell a teacher that labor history is important and that they can get digestible 2-minute lessons that are absolutely free. Free to download, free to use, free to share. Tell a teacher to go to thericksmithshow.com/history and help us put labor back where it belongs, in the classroom. Generations of American workers fought, bled, and died to build the American way of life. It's our job to keep their stories alive. Go tell a teacher that we're here to help them do just that. Find us at thericksmithshow.com/history today.
Welcome back to The Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So, I look at this moment and talking about the Fight for 15 campaign, of which SEIU was fully behind and pushed the idea of Fight for 15 and a union. The and a union part was always the important part to me. That meant better working conditions. That meant a voice on the job. That meant fighting for better. This is kind of the culmination of well over a decade of fighting, of pushing workplace actions, of political action, legislative action, regulatory action, getting consumers involved, getting the media involved, all kinds of community building, of worker power building. People like Crystal, who I guarantee you never imagined herself in the position that she's in. And this is what's so important about building grassroots, bottom-up worker power. It's the kind of thing that I talk about all the time, that I've always felt empowered in the workplace and also in society as a whole, as a worker, as a citizen, as a person, because I've always had a union job. I've always had that ability to say, what, if something's wrong, and I'm going to fix it. And that's the important thing here. And this is what the wealth class is afraid of. That kind of empowered worker who's going to say, no, we want part of the wealth that our labor creates. No, we want better opportunities for ourselves, our children, for the future. They're afraid of that. So this victory out in California is kind of a big deal. Now remember, I remember the first time I interviewed someone on the Fight for 15 campaign. It wasn't that yet. There were two competing groups calling for $15 an hour minimum wage. One in Chicago, I forget the name of it, was a restaurant kind of group. I forget the name of it. And then in New York, there was the $15 an hour Fight for 15 campaign. They were both saying, what at the time was, people were going, that's just outrageous. There's no way you're ever going to get a $15 an hour minimum wage. And through their work, they've gotten it passed in numerous places across this country. And you've got now a major political party going, that should be in fact, we should be going beyond that. We're now talking $20 an hour. You got the Teamster president saying that, the UPS part-timers should be making $20 an hour. You're now saying we should be doing better than this. You're now, as a working class, saying, hey, we should be doing better than this. So I look at this model, this sectorial bargaining of, an entire industry saying, okay, we're going to create an environment where we're going to set the standards for an entire industry. Like prevailing wage does for construction workers, setting wages and benefits. We're going to do that across an industry on everything. We're going to set up a commission of workers, of employers, of government regulators. We're going to bring them all together and going to solve problems and make lives better. It's a good thing, I think. Now, as a union person who still believes in the idea of collective bargaining and workplace bargaining and all that, this is a change. This is kind of a breakdown in this, and there are going to be some hiccups along the way. But this is a good start of using the powers that we have to make people's lives better. Because understand, the way our laws are set up right now, organizing the fast food industry is impossible. It's impossible. Because they're set up with, your local XYZ fast food restaurant isn't owned by the company that's name's on the door. It's owned by a franchisee. It's owned by some guy in your neighborhood who may own 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 10 of them, who knows. But it's not owned by the guy with the arches or the girl on the picture or the guy with the crown. It's not owned by that company. Which is why during the Obama years, they were trying to get a joint employer rule, which would have made those big companies responsible for what the franchise owners do, making it possible to organize all of them. Oh, no, right-wing crazy people. No, can't do that. Heaven forbid that workers have the ability to fight for better wages, hours, and conditions, and we actually make work pay. We actually make lives better from work. Heaven forbid. What this is going to do is it's going to set a standard. And for those people who go, well, you're going to make fast food restaurants unaffordable. No, what you're going to do is you're going to make these places compete on the right things. You're going to make them compete on the best quality. You're going to make them compete on the best service, on the best cleanliness and sanitary conditions, the best locations. You're going to make them compete on not on who's cheating their workers out of wages, who's paying the least wages. You're not competing on that. You're competing on the right things. And this, again, as I talk about changing the economy, we've got to change it in a way where it's no longer a race to the bottom. No longer a race to the bottom that's screwing over working people and enriching a handful. And yes, there are going to be winners and losers in all of this. And the winners are going to be the working people who create the wealth. And a little bit the loser are going to be the guy who takes money from one pocket to the other. And I know he takes on all the risk. But you know what's interesting about the people who take on all the risk? We seem to bail them out an awful lot. And yet, not many people complain about that. We seem to pick up the tab whenever their business ventures fail. We seem to pick up the tab every time they squander the pensions of their workforce. Not much complaining there. So for me, this is an opportunity. This is an opportunity to move us in a direction that potentially could be helpful. Now, is there going to be some spasms? Yeah, because I'm looking at the potential of this moving into other industries. While this is just focused on fast food, and this could go across the country, who knows? I'm looking at ride sharing, the ride sharing industry, which are they've been screwing over people for a long time by calling them independent contractors and misclassifying them when they're actually employees, or any of these industries, and using this as a way to justify their being. That could happen. But for me, the idea that we're going to use policy, we're going to move forward on making lives better, on creating opportunities for people to do that thing that I believed in, that I grew up being told was possible, that if you work hard, you play by the rules, you get ahead. This is part of that, in my view. It's that simple. Now, what's always been interesting to me is, the organizing the fast food workers. I never really thought that they were going to ever be able to get them into traditional unions because of how disjointed the entire industry is by design. The big overarching companies, they just want to collect the fees. They just want you to pay them for the name. And of course, buy their food and buy the things that they make you buy from them. And then you got the individuals, the middle guy, going out there hustling and, then having to cheat the workers out of wages and all of that. Also, can't unionize them. Kind of hard. One store at a time. That's the reason they broke it up the way they did. This could help. This could be a move in the right direction. But it was always interesting to me that SEIU would pursue this because they weren't going to be dues-paying members. So for those people who say, well, they're only in it because of their narrow self-interest, it's a business, they want the dues money, they haven't collected any dues on this stuff. This is about making lives better. And this is what the labor movement has always stood for, about making lives better. So all the right-wing propaganda that you hear, it's a narrow self-interest, they're only in it for themselves, is bunk. It's about making working people's lives better. And for me, this is another one of those examples. They spent a lot of time, energy, effort, and resource in moving this legislation along. Why? To make lives better. And shouldn't that be what all of us want? Shouldn't, and I say this every time a new president comes into office. I want them to be the president that makes people's lives better, that returns reward to work. And if Gavin Newsome wants to be president, guess what? This is a start. This can be that beginning. So Governor Newsome, I'd suggest, just kind of throwing it out there, you sign the legislation. This could be the beginning of your legacy in returning a reward to work and being a champion of the working class. Just my thought. Love to hear yours. Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Quick break, right back. I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1935. That was the day that President Franklin Delano Roosevelt signed the Revenue Tax Act. more popularly known as the wealth tax. The act reformed the federal income tax to raise rates on the wealthiest in the nation. Those making over $5 million a year could pay taxes up to 75%. In a speech to Congress that summer, Roosevelt had explained his thoughts on wealth and taxes. The president said, quote, "Wealth in the modern world does not come merely from individual effort. It results from a combination of individual effort and of the manifold uses to which the community puts that effort. The individual does not create the product of his industry with his own hands. He utilizes the many processes and forces of mass production to meet the demands of a national and international market. Therefore, in spite of the great importance in our national life of the efforts and ingenuity of unusual individuals, the people in the mass have inevitably helped to make large fortunes possible. Without mass cooperation, FDR said, great accumulation of wealth would be impossible save by unhealthy speculation." The president went on, as Andrew Carnegie put it, where wealth accumulates honorably, the people are always silent partners. Whether it be wealth achieved through the cooperation of the entire community or riches gained by speculation, in either case, the ownership of such wealth or riches represents a great public interest and a great ability to pay. Although FDR tried to win over the nation's wealthy by quoting industrialist Andrew Carnegie, he did not gain their support. Not surprisingly, many of the nation's wealthy lobbied for and used tax loopholes to evade paying the new tax rates. Like what you hear? Check out more at laborhistoryin2.com.
Corporate acolytes and right-wing moralists constantly preach to laboring stiffs about the uplifting dignity of work. Of course, that's dignity as defined and controlled by corporate elites, not by workers, and the reward for it frequently includes on-the-job injuries and death. Not that CEOs and well-heeled investors intend to sicken, maim, and kill thousands of laborers every year, but they certainly do put them in positions that assure such unhappy results. For example, they demand that farm workers go sunrise to sunset picking crops in California's 105-degree desert heat, and that construction crews toil in the muggy dog days of Florida summers, tarring condo roofs. Low-paid, powerless workers die, but no one in the corporate hierarchy did the deed, right? Heat was the killer. But wait, not only are aloof, air-cool bosses the ones who knowingly subject subordinates to deadly heat, but they're also the ones who hire squads of lobbyists and lawyers to kill simple, inexpensive rules to stop these deaths. Such rules as requiring ample water at work sites, ensuring paid rest breaks in cool spaces, training on-site managers and employees to detect and react to signs of heat stress, and imposing serious punishments for violators. Such sensible steps have repeatedly been proposed as official workplace policy for at least the last 50 years. But intense industry lobbying has killed the adoption of all attempts to prevent what amounts to workplace murder by corporate profiteers. Instead, the U.S. government pretends to protect workers by printing posters admonishing employees to beware of heat, basically telling them goodbye and good luck. This is Jim Hightower saying, but at last a real proposal has been put on the table by more than 110 grassroots groups. See it and join it by contacting Public Citizen, citizen.org. The Hightower Radio.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So our quote of the day, and you gotta love the quote of the day. Herschel Walker, yes, Herschel Walker, at it again. Herschel said, this was on that Newsmax station, whatever that is. My bike is not bent, so anyone can ride my bike like he's going to have Chuck Schumer or Joe Biden riding his bike because he's going to be voting for whatever they say. So bent bikes now, wow. Here's the scary part. That guy's up by 2 points in the polling there in Georgia, according to the latest Emerson poll. I'm going, how is it possible? How is it possible? That guy. And there's one guy who's thrilled about this. Tommy Tuberville will no longer be the dumbest man in the Senate if he's elected. So there's one guy really rooting for Herschel Walker to be the next senator, the next stupid senator from Georgia. Anyway, let's find out. Maybe I'm putting too much into this. Maybe we're gonna wake up. Maybe it was all bad dream. But here to share some thoughts on the top stories of the day, I've asked Carolyn Fiddler to come talk with us. She's the political editorial director over at Courier Newsroom, couriernewsroom.com, the website. Carolyn, thanks for taking time for us.
Thanks for having me. Always fun to be here.
His bike is not bent.
I got nothing. All I can say is concussions are bad, and anyone who played as much football as he did got a lot of them. And yeah, it's not good.
Yeah, I mean, this is where I feel bad. I don't know if he's stupid
Right.
or if it is the CTE speaking. I don't know which, but either way, not the Senate.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, Tommy Tuberville is, the resident brain trust. But again, also played a lot of football. Probably also had a few too many head injuries. So like it's easy to make fun of that, but the point is he'd be a terrible senator for Georgia.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to be a horrible senator if he wins. And please, Georgia, if you're listening, no. Raphael Warnock is a good man and a good senator. Keep him. Now, speaking of head injuries, or well, I don't know where to go with Mike Lindell. But evidently, did you watch the big summit that he had? The moment of truth summit or whatever that was. I watched some of it.
I was busy watching paint dry.
Okay. Well, see, I did watch a little bit of it because, I guess I'm just curious. I guess I was one of like 20,000 people who bothered to watch. And I got to think the other 20,000 were just like me to go, wow.
I was about to say probably a quarter of that audience was just gawkers and journalists being like, what the heck?
This is a problem here, though, because, he's out there running around, and I've actually had some listeners email me going, it's big tech's responsible for Mike Lindell's failures. And I'm going, why? So every time conservatives fail at something, it's now big tech's fault. It's
never their own fault.
Never.
That's too much work. That means they did something wrong, and admitting you did something wrong sucks. It's hard to do. It's unpleasant. And B, that means you got to work to fix it, and that's hard. Boo. Much easier to blame it on someone else.
Do you remember
especially a boogeyman like big tech? That just sounds scary. Like, oh.
You remember when conservatives used to be the party of personal responsibility? Do you remember that?
I do remember that. I'm old enough.
Yeah, it's getting a little foggy. It's back there. But they used to take responsibility for things. It wasn't the deep state. It wasn't Hillary Clinton.
No, they used to hate big government, and now they want to be in everyone's bedroom. They want to be in everyone's doctor's office.
Which brings us to November.
Email inbox, where they decide they're supposed to be, as opposed to the spam folder where they belong. So.
Which brings us to November. I mean, I look at my state of Pennsylvania, the voter registration. Wow, women are finally going, hey, you mean you've been telling me for the last 17 years they're going to overturn Roe and come after contraception, and I called you a liar, and they're doing it? Finally, maybe paying attention.
It's good. Better late. Like, I mean, it was a right that women had for people who could get pregnant had for a very long time. And I can, people like us knew it was in danger, but I can certainly understand, the sort of thinking it was settled. I mean, a lot of Supreme Court justices who voted to overturn it told us it was settled law, told us we had nothing to worry about, but they were lying. And, it's been the wake up call that it needed to be.
So is this going to matter come November? I know a lot of people are saying, oh my God, the red wave is coming. And then on the other side going, no, November is going to save us. How do you see this playing out?
I wouldn't say it's a wash, because things were always going to be difficult for Democrats this fall. It's a midterm election with a Democratic president. And it's also the first election since this most recent round of redistricting. That's going to be hard for the House and for state legislatures, because Republicans controlled most of it, just like they did last decade. And the 2012 elections, for anyone old enough to remember them, sucked a lot. And I think that Dobbs, the overturning of Roe, is going to help this November suck less, relatively speaking. But it's still uphill for Democrats, no matter what.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping where I live in Pennsylvania, at least the statewide, races like governor and Senate, those will go the right way. Because I don't know that I want a Nazi and a beet juice hawker as governor and senator here. I just don't. I don't think I want that.
You don't think Dr. Oz can help you lose weight with just one green tea
No one
pill
can
a
do
day,
that.
or whatever the heck he's pushing at any given point in time?
Yeah, no one can do that. I've been trying for years.
That should be your challenge to him. Dr. Oz, if you can help me lose weight, I'll vote for you.
There you go. We're going to reach out to Dr. Oz with the challenge there by election day.
He's the doctor, right? He's supposed to have good advice for this kind of thing.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. All I keep hearing from him is him attacking John Fetterman for, John's medical condition.
No, didn't you hear? That's just his campaign spokesperson, who he's not, accountable for. The person he pays money to say things for him, he, has no connection to him. He's trying to claim. It's so ridiculous. Bless his heart.
Yeah, no, the whole thing is your campaign says it, you said it. That's how this game works. You don't get to have degrees of separation in your camp. Someone said it in your camp, you said it.
That's where the buck stops. Yeah, period.
But here's the thing, again, that mentality of the buck stops somewhere, completely gone on that side of the aisle. No responsibility. Everyone's the victim. It's always someone else's. It's kind of like a 2-year-old. I mean, they're kind of like the 2-year-old party. They don't get their way. They throw a temper tantrum. It's always someone else who broke the lamp. It's never them. It's kind of sad.
It's way past sad. Oh my gosh.
I'm trying to be nice. I'm trying to give them hope that they can change. I'm trying to get them to go, be better. Be better.
I mean, they weren't always this way, and there are actual Republican voters out there who don't believe in a lot of the nonsense. They are just not the ones steering the ship of the GOP right now at all.
No, you got that right. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show. We're with Carolyn Fiddler. She's political editorial director over at Courier Newsroom. CourierNewsroom.com is their website if you want to check out the incredible work that they do there. And then talking about who's steering the ship, the Donald, interestingly enough, wants to be installed as president, wants to redo it, still fixated on 2020 and rerunning the election. And now, granted, only half of Truth Social users will now be able to use it because evidently got thrown off the Android platform. And eventually, I assume they're going to be completely off completely because they're not paying their bills to the person who puts them there. They haven't done that since March.
Donald Trump not pay his bills? What? That's never happened except for several times.
Yeah. Who could have predicted that? Oh yeah, everyone. But speaking of him, he wants to be he wants to be installed president.
Cool. I want a pony. Next question.
What kind of pony?
I'm thinking a nice, just a nice paint.
Okay. Yeah, those are nice.
Something size for me. I'm only like 5'3". A pony's more my speed than say a quarter horse.
Not a Clydesdale, one of those big giant draft horse.
Oh, I love those, but boy, I could just lay down on the back of a Clydesdale, just spread out like a bed.
No, but talking about everyone's saying that he's leading the direction of the party, but I'm looking at some candidates and like this Blake Masters, basically scrubbing their campaigns of language, kind of makes you wonder how much control Trump's going to have.
Oh, he has plenty of control, but these folks aren't morons in that they realize that those Trump base folks who won them their primaries are not enough to win them the general. So they're trying to shimmy over to the middle, hope no one notices, except for people who notice. And it's up to the media to hold these candidates accountable for the things they're trying to now hide.
Yeah, but when the media does that, of course, the victim. It's kind of like, when they crime and the police, arrest them, they're the victim in this. They're not the criminal. It's kind of like when you steal documents, that would have gotten any one of us thrown in jail. Victim.
Right. No, yeah, we'd be in Gitmo now for national security like violations, and he's just playing golf.
No, you know, look, I got a friend who's a former congressman who said, look, if you threw a rock at a post office window and reached your arm in the window and grabbed a pen off the desk, you'd be sitting in jail for a long time.
Yeah.
They took 300 classified documents. Some of them really, who knows? And people wondering, did we get foreign assets killed? Did we get people killed in all this? We don't even know what we don't know. And he's still playing golf, like OJ.
Yep. Oh boy.
Maybe there's a twosome.
At least OJ ended up going to jail for a while.
Yeah, but that was for something else.
Right, but we know why he really went to jail.
But this is one of those things. I mean, Trump didn't even get that. I mean, and the weird thing is because of Trump, I actually agreed with Karl Rove on something.
Oh,
it
God.
Makes no sense to me why he wouldn't have given the stuff back. Makes no sense why he had it. And I agree that I think that the Secret Service is the one who ratted him out.
Huh. Yeah. Makes sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, what kind of an upside down world? I'm agreeing with Karl Rove. I've actually had John Bolton on the program that I agreed with a little bit. Joe Walsh, the former congressman from Illinois that used to be a chew toy, is now somebody I view as rational. What has happened?
It's we live in the upside down. It's a strange time to be alive, and stranger time to be in politics for sure.
So where do you see this going? Because like I'm reading the headlines today, 40% of the country thinks civil war in the next decade. Is this one of those self-fulfilling prophecies the media keeps throwing and feeding this? The civil war is coming, that we actually start believing it? I'm curious your thoughts.
Well, if Mastriano gets elected governor of Pennsylvania, I mean, he's primed to lead the charge for the Confederacy, apparently, according to pictures.
He's got the costume.
that we've seen of him in uniform.
Does have the costume.
The gray uniform, the wrong one, not the one that Pennsylvania was using, or got it right. Anyway, no, I don't think we're on the brink of a civil war. I think the country is very divided, for sure. I think that these folks, like the kind of folks who storm the Capitol, they're a mob. They're not able to organize into an actual fighting force. They will continue to agitate, and I can imagine a world in which they sort of decline into some sort of terroristic warfare, and that is incredibly scary, and I pray doesn't happen. But I think things are gonna get worse before they get better, but I have to believe they'll get better.
At some point they'll get better. Now Lindsey Graham, we got to bring up Lindsey Graham. He said that if Trump is held accountable, if he's indicted, prosecuted, whatever, there's going to be violence in the streets. There will be riots. Do you think
that's a threat?
What's that?
He's just making threats.
No, I get that. But do you think he'll be out there leading the charge? Do you think he'll be out there at all? Look, I think there's going to be some dimwit. I do. I think there'll be a couple of dimwits. Oh, they're going after my cult leader. I get that. But do you think Lindsey, who's throwing this out, putting the idea in the head of the poorly educated, do you think he'll be leading the charge?
He won't be anywhere close to it. He'll be at Mar-a-Lago, toasting with some sort of pina colada concoction with Trump. Toasting the idiots fighting their non-existent war for them.
Yeah, it's really kind of a bizarre place. Makes you wonder, though, doesn't it?
I worry about all the people who buy into this kind of thing, who are actually going to do themselves and others harm. That people are allowed to disagree, but this is getting to a place where that's genuinely scary.
And when you think that you can get into the FBI, with a nail gun, and then I got to question the sanity in all of this.
Apparently there was a YouTube video saying he could use that to break bulletproof glass.
Yeah.
I can't imagine where these people are coming from, and I'm okay with that.
He did his research.
Yeah.
The same kind of research they were doing about the virus, the same kind of research that they do about just about everything. I did my own research.
Right.
I think you had the wrong sources, folks. Which again is why they seem to love the poorly educated, according to Trump. Finally, can you get your thoughts on Mikhail Gorbachev died?
Yeah.
I didn't know he was still alive.
Oh gosh. I have a low-key obsession with the former Soviet republics and like the former Soviet Union and things like that. So I knew he was still alive. He, had been living quietly for a while. He was not beloved in Putin's Russia. Putin and his cronies think that Gorbachev weakened the country and blame him and his policies for all manner of ills that they suffer now because of Putin and his policies. But it's so much easier to blame someone else, especially someone who's doesn't have a power base anymore, is probably not going to speak out against you. Well, now Putin doesn't have to worry about him at all. But Gorbachev was a transformative leader in every sense of the word.
Yeah, 92 years old. I saw the headline. I'm going, gee, I didn't even know he was still alive. But good on him. 92 years, good for him. But I thought I'd throw that out to you because I know you have that interest.
Well, and thank you. And it makes me think of Chernobyl, actually, and the war in Ukraine and all that, because a lot of people say Chernobyl was like kind of the beginning of the end for the Soviet Union because it required a level of like sort of disclosure of Soviet faults, including certain faults that were inherent in their nuclear reactors that Russia had no interest in, USSR rather, had no interest in admitting to the wider world. They tried to keep the disaster under wraps. It was floating radiation that made the world aware. USSR was never going to tell anybody this had happened if they could have had their way, but they had no choice. I think about Chernobyl with, in relative to the current conflict in Ukraine quite a lot. And now with Gorbachev, it's on my mind again, especially because Russian forces are occupying a nuclear plant now. And it's terrifying because it's much bigger than the Chernobyl plant.
No, the whole situation there is terrifying. And it's amazing to me that this hasn't been a unifying thing in this country, that we're even divided on this. I mean, that's shocking to me as well.
Yeah, same.
It is what it is. But Carolyn, I appreciate you taking some time and some thoughts. Always great talking with you. I look forward to having you get back again real soon.
Thanks for having me.
Our good friend Carolyn Fiddler. Make sure you check out the work that she does over at Courier Newsroom, couriernewsroom.com. The website. Quick break. Right back after this. Stick around. Listen to The Rick Smith Show. For working people on the talk. I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1921. That was the day that one of the most pitched battles in U.S. labor history, the Battle of Blair Mountain, began in West Virginia. Coal fueled the engines of industry, keeping the trains moving and the steel mills humming. Labor organizing in the coal fields faced violent repression. The conflict turned bloody at Matawan. Friend of labor, local lawman Sid Hatfield had won a gun battle against armed members of the notorious Baldwin-Felts Detective Agency. Then, other Baldwin-Felts agents, brought to West Virginia by the mine owners, gunned down Hatfield in cold blood. The miners' anger boiled over. 600 miners gathered under the United Mine Workers of America District 17 banner. The armed miners were determined to march into the state's southern coal fields. Their aim was to promote the union effort and sweep away the gunmen hired by the mining companies. As they marched, more and more miners joined them. As many as 10,000 miners converged on Blair Mountain. The high ground stood between the unionized northern part of the state and the less organized southern mines. At Blair Mountain, they met Logan County Sheriff Don Chafin, who had amassed an army of 3,000 armed men to repel the miners. Chafin's men had dug trenches, blocked roads, and marshaled machine guns to stop the Union men. In the battle that ensued, 1 million rounds were fired. The mine owners hired private planes to drop shrapnel bombs on the miners. The United States Army finally arrived. The miners, many of them World War I veterans, surrendered. Although the owners had won, what occurred at Blair Mountain drew national attention to the unsafe working conditions and the brutality of the coal barons in the coal fields. Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Check out the website, thericksmithshow.com. Questions, comments, something on your mind, you can email me, Rick, at thericksmithshow.com. So, Dr. Oz. Another one of my favorite quotes today. He says, my campaign's been saying a lot of things. My position is, I can only speak to what I'm saying. And you go, hold on, wait a second. Your campaign is saying things? That's you saying things. If you can't control what your campaign is saying, how are you going to control a Senate office? And a staff of, how are we going to know what your positions are? Are you going to be the guy who goes, oh, well, that was a staffer. Yeah, that's not what I really believe today. We're in this weird kind of moment where, again, I go back to this responsibility thing, where conservatives are responsible for nothing. The Republicans responsible for nothing. It's Biden. It's the deep state. It's go on. It's big tech. It's always someone else. And this is one of those moments where, I grew up, I guess, my generation, I grew up, my mother, if you're involved in it and something goes wrong, it's your fault. You shouldn't have been involved in it. Like on January 6th, if you went into the Capitol and you participated in this, and granted, everybody else was going, you've heard it. At least I hope everyone's heard it. If so-and-so jumps off a bridge, you're going to follow them? Well, a bunch of so-and-sos jumped off the bridge to enter the Capitol, and a bunch of other idiots followed them. Now, were they the ones who were there with the intent of overthrowing our government? I don't think they were read in on the plan. I think most of the people who walked into the Capitol were dupes and morons. But the people who knew why they were there and what they were doing, they knew people were going to follow them. They knew it. But do we then not hold them? Oh, that's right. Oh, never mind. No, of course not. You hold people accountable for their actions, whether it's, walking into the Capitol when you shouldn't have, or it's stealing classified documents. Now, we can have a whole argument whether there should be classified documents and whether we should be holding secret, super secret stuff, which you can have that conversation. But ultimately, reality, we need to return to some good old-fashioned values where you do something, you're responsible for it. Fess up. And the other one, the one that's most important to me, don't worry about me, worry about yourself. I think back to my grandparents and some of the things that my grandfather always said. And one of them was, don't worry about me, worry about yourself. You take care of your business. And we seem to be a country really concerned of what our neighbors, what someone across the street is doing, what people, we don't even know what they're doing. And yet, when you look back in the mirror, there's some work that needs to be done. And I would look at my evangelical friends who are out there proselytizing and doing all of that and go, maybe that book you talk about casting the first stone and things like that, maybe if you read that, might help. Maybe a little bit. Touch. Interesting. But I'd love to hear your thoughts because, for me, it's a return to these kind of old-fashioned values that we don't talk about anymore. Of, take care of your own business, take care of your family, worry about yourself. Work hard, play by the rules, get ahead, be part of a community that helps, not tears apart. Imagine if we actually did some of that stuff. Email me, Rick at thericksmithshow.com. If you missed any portion of the program, make sure you grab the podcast. Wherever you get yours, you'll find ours from iTunes to iHeart, Stitcher to Podbean, and everywhere in between. That's where we'll be. Thanks for being here. We'll see you back here next time.
You've been listening to The Rick Smith Show. Email Rick at rick@thericksmithshow.com.